Okay, so for Terengganu MPP2, question 10 is a differentiation type of questions for limit and first principle questions. So question A, limit, they ask us to find the limit when n approaches 8 for the equations, or for the expressions as shown here, n squared minus 64 divided by n minus 8. We can do direct substitutions if possible. So when we sub n inside, you will notice that 8 minus 8 will obtain 0. So if the denominator is 0, it will be undefined. Yeah, so we can't just direct substitution, we need to do some factorizations before we do the substitutions. So limit of n approaches to 8, I can factorize the above one, n squared minus 64, which is a squared minus b squared if you notice. So a squared minus b squared you can express in terms of a squared a plus b, a minus b. So my a will be n plus 8 n minus 8 divided by n minus 8. So I can simplify out my n minus 8. So finally, I can write it as, that's my first thing, limit of n approaches 8 for n plus 8. So I will get 8, I can do direct substitution now, 8 plus 8, I will obtain 16. That's my final answer. So I get 1 mark when I do factorizations, and I get my final mark when I can get 16. So for the question B, they ask us to differentiate y equals to x squared minus 3 by using first principle method. So first principle method, you can't just use the formula. So you need to know a concept, which is in this case, the easiest way is actually we use the gradient concept, which is rise over run. So my dy dx, you want to find a dy dx, but you can't use the formula. So dy dx will be equal to my limit of my delta y divided by my delta x when my delta x approaches 0. This is a concept. So what's my delta y? So if my run is delta x, so at first I will use h instead of using delta x. So I have a coordinates. At first we have a coordinate which is xy, and another coordinate which is x plus h. So another coordinate will be x plus h, the y coordinate will be x plus h squared minus 3. That's the concept. So by comparing these two particular we finding the gradient of these two particular coordinates, and we make the h as small as possible. So we just will limit. So I'll just write out this concept. So x plus h square minus 3 minus x plus h, minus x minus y. My y will be x squared minus 3 divide by, so my run is actually x plus h minus x, so you eventually get an x, h down. So my dy dx will be this, but I will limit my h to be as small as possible. So it's actually the limit of this expression when my h is approaching 0. So I'll try to expand x squared so I will just simplify it out, x squared and negative x squared and so on. So when you divide, you can't do direct substitution, because when you substitute h equals to 0 into the expressions, you will get a 0 below, and eventually you get undefined. So you need to simplify. So divide, factorize out the h and simplify it, and finally you should get 2x plus h. So you can just do direct substitution now. So 2x plus 0. So eventually you get 2x as the final answer. So concept used is actually need to know as actually you need to know the limit concept when your h or your delta x approaches 0, and you need to find and simplify your work. So this is a 4 marks questions. They give you 3 marks. Then finally, eventually for your answer, they give you 1 mark. So that's all for this differentiations, limits, and also first principle type of question.